Okay, today is August 18th or 19th? 18th, 19th. And my name is Dr. Rhonda Jones, and I'm talking today with Virginia Holmes, and we are doing an oral history for the Black Lives Matter archive for the University of North Carolina of Greensboro. And let's just start. So, Virginia, if you could just give me your full name and give me just a little bit of background of where you're from.
So my name is Virginia Danette Holmes. I am from Greensboro, North Carolina, originally the Warnersville community of Greensboro. And I am 27 years old, and I'm super excited to be here today. I'm sorry, could you repeat the question for me one more time? I got a little nervous.
You answered my question. So tell me about Warnersville. Tell me about that community.
Okay, so the Warnersville community was annexed into Greensboro in the 60s through legislature, of course, and annexation, rezoning, things of that nature. But it was established in 1865 as a free city of freed slaves, and it was the first established Black community in the state of North Carolina. That was purchased land from slaves that worked and saved, and it was later annexed into the city of Greensboro, but and later then turned into a Section 8 community. And I grew up in the time where it was a Section 8 community, and so yeah, that's where I'm from. I'm from technically where it's called Hampton Homes.
Hampton Homes. Okay, So who were the most influential people in this community when you were growing up?
It would have had to be the women in my life, specifically my mother, my aunts, my grandmother. My grandmother is truly like someone who I truly adore. Like, she's like my best friend, but she has a very rich history as well. She was married into our family, but she's the only grandmother I have had. She's my grandfather's wife technically, but my whole life she's always been the one who's kind of shown me the abilities of my dreams if I make my dreams a reality. And my aunts as well. I have a family full of this rich culture of strong Black women who I credit most of my success to, all of my success to, honestly. I was talking with you about my sister, even to my sister, my older sister, who's just 3 years older than me. We were taught really young, as young girls, to be self-sufficient. But there were key members of our family who were women who got opportunities to see beyond our community scenes where we grew up on the south side of Greensboro. And through that, we're able to come back and inspire, some of us to pursue our wildest dreams. And I just happened to be one of those members in the family who had someone beside me, before me, around me, who told me that I could achieve beyond whatever I saw right in front of me, wide awake without having to go to sleep and think about it. Like, no, like, you can do it right now type thing. So, yeah.
So were the women in your family part of any type of organizations?
So believe it or not, a lot of the women in my family had children probably before the age of 16, up until my mom's youngest sister, my Aunt Erica, where she and my cousin, I had a cousin who had kids at 27. And that goes as far back as like my great aunts, my great grandmothers. And so they were part of churches. We have some college educated women, but most of the women in my family did not graduate from college, or they probably just graduated from high school for the most part, or some just got a GED. But they later became community members. So it would, for several reasons, it could have been like a Boys and Girls Club engagement, or they went to a historical high school like Dudley High School or Smith High School, even some Grimsley, and just being native, our family being native from Greensboro. I feel like the organization would just be the community. It's kind of what I feel prepared them for their later lives, where they then became entrepreneurs. And so, like, majority of the women in my family, to some degree, own a business. And it's been It could be cosmetology. I have a cousin who has an Etsy shop who's doing really, really well. I have my aunt who is a dance instructor, she's a dance teacher. She works in after school programs. She's involved with the Guilford County school system, and also like my mentor, very influential in my life. And another one of these these beacons, I call my aunts, my lighthouses, even has their own cooking. She's a cake boss, I guess, if you want to say that. She has her own bakery. And that's my great aunt. And one of the richest sources of history is my great aunt to our family because of her consistent, I feel like, nurturing of the children around her. We have a family of mostly women. So like, it was, like I said, a lot of them fell into these certain categories, but they never allowed their circumstance to define them, and paved ways for their children and their children's children and everyone around them to be successful, I feel.
Well, those are great role models to follow.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I feel like I was rambling. I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm nervous.
In the heart, and that's what we're asking of you. You
Yes,
share
ma'am.
as much or as little as you like.
Yes, ma'am. It's kind of crazy to me, like, to even kind of be having this conversation right now, because I was just on the phone with, like, I reached out to all of my aunts, and I was like, I want y'all to know. I don't know, like, what this means or anything, that I'm having these conversations now more often about our past. I was like, everybody just wants to know about our family. And like, to us, being from the South Side is just like it's our DNA, like, we don't see many people like that look like us, talk like us, where we're from. Like, you would say, oh, you actually sound very professional. And I tell my friends all the time, like, I'm bilingual.
You
It's
live
like,
in
no,
both worlds.
yeah, I live in both worlds. But it's just because, again, like, I had women in my life who were like, no, like, if you're going to go and you're going to do something, you're going to have to be equally as prepared on both sides to fight both wars if necessary, and be prepared to do the necessary at any point in time, regardless of how afraid you may be. And that's like, I feel one of the things, hearing that as a young girl, not knowing, like, dang, I'm gonna need this one day. It's kind of how, like, I'm really nervous right now, even talking to you, like, just like how I'm able to continue to just climb this ladder. I feel that's not just for me, but like, when you see me, it's like the DNA of like an entire culture. And it wasn't until my 20s, honestly, like now, like the past 3 years, that I have learned this rich history about my people, to be honest. Like, even to my mom's family, their last name's Underwood. Their family's from Cameroon. Like, that's where their DNA origin is from. And like, to even know about the slave culture here of our state, and how our family ended up with the last name Underwood, like things like that, like doing my research. And I think a lot of that is what drives my art, but also drives me as a woman, as a young black woman.
That's
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
I'm sorry.
But let me ask you, so were you a student at UNCG or one of the local campuses?
Yeah, so about that. I actually, in 2012, dropped out of UNCG. No, it was 2012. I was studying political science. I was a double major in political science and communication studies, with a concentration in international relations. This is before I ever became an artist. This is before I ever knew art was a love of mine. This was back when I wanted to be Hillary Clinton, and I wanted to fight the war on Darfur. I wanted to do greater research about impoverished nations, and do like missionary work in foreign places. But I actually ended up leaving UNCG to take care of my brother, but also because I was manic depressed and I didn't know it at the time. And so I like was there on a full ride. I had the GI Bill and everything, and I left school. I graduated from high school with straight A's in the top 5% of my class. By my sophomore year of college, you would say I was in the negative percentile of success for college because of just how like consumed I was with my life trauma. And that's a very murky time frame for me, because I think also too, a lot of it is what inspires my art now. I came into college displaced from my mother at 18, but my mom and I have always had a rich history together. And when I was 17 years old, we did not, and it's hard for me to kind of like talk about it only because.
And if you don't want to talk about it, you can stop at any point.
Oh no, you're fine.
Okay.
I think all things come full circle, such as life. Sometimes you have to kind of face yourself to cross certain bridges, and I think it's also important to always just be mindful of the truth in your life and why it's important. I'm sorry, but yeah, my mom and I, essentially my mom became very radically involved in the church to the point where she began demonizing certain things I was involved with as a young girl. Cheerleading, like things you would deem normal, right?
All those things she
like
found painful.
Like the Jabberwock.
Yes.
Was something that I was very, I ran track. So like team sleepovers, things like that.
Okay.
And this took place the second semester of so I was 17 years old. Yeah.
So
and I was in high school. Yeah. And I almost didn't graduate because of it. I went from making straight A's in high school to straight F's my junior year of high school, to the point where my aunt, my mom's youngest sister, had to intervene.
Okay.
And my sister was in school at Central at the time, and she dropped out of school from Central to make sure that I graduated from high school. My grandmother was in Virginia at the time and going through a divorce with my grandfather, my paternal grandfather. And my grandmother even was traveling up and down from Virginia to make sure that I wasn't, because I started battling with suicide really heavy. Like if you're a 17-year-old girl and you're being 17, right? You're boys, like, fashion, you don't know.
Wreck.
You don't know, like, right? And it's like, you're like this seedling, this flower, this potted flower, who's trying the hardest just to be like a bush, just like, I just want to be a bush with flowers all over, but doesn't even understand that, you're actually, you're a rose, dear. You have thorns or things about you that you need to know. And having, I think, a mother who was also too, which I later in my adulthood realized was a victim of like systematic oppressions, that she didn't have the education and or understanding to like know and identify at the time, having a daughter at 19 years old and another daughter at 16 and a son by 27, and her mother was murdered when she was 15. It's a lot. And so that perspective I just gave you came at the age of 24, and I'm 27. So it took me, yeah.
So your art took you out of that darkness?
Yeah, it was hard. It was the hardest thing I ever did. When I dropped out of school, I wrote my aunt and uncle, who I call my mom and dad. Believe it or not, I don't want to confuse you. So I do have both my birth parents who are alive, but neither of them are actively involved in my life.
Right.
But my mom and my parents are my aunt and uncle, my mom's youngest sister and her husband. And so I remember writing them a letter. Well, I kind of just told my aunt, like, I'm not going back to school. Real like haughty. Like I was like, yeah, I'm not going back. I'm frustrated, like life, right? Because I'm 18, 19 at this point, frustrated with life. And I wrote my uncle a letter, and I remember telling him, and he was so devastated. And he was so hurt. And I remember him looking at me in my face, and he told me, you don't owe me anything. But I know without a shadow of a doubt that you are going to do better than this. There's more for you than this. Don't you dare give up. And I mean, my uncle's a very calm man. He's a Seventh-day Adventist, believe it or not. He's never had a drink in his life. He's never smoked a day in his life. He's never done drugs a day in his life. He's kind of led a very he's been very sociable. He was a pretty boy in high school. So he was very sociable with the ladies, but he was never like the guy that would be on the scene like that. And my aunt grew up, like our family, we were all from the south side of Greensboro. So you can imagine, you know, they ended up at the same high schools, but they lived very separate lives. And so my uncle, when I was explaining to him, which, believe it or not, we actually have still to this day, well, actually, no, that's not true. We did Father's Day last year. We ended up having a conversation about it, finally, you know, where my mind was. And actually, he led the conversation and was kind of like giving me words of affirmation, like kind of, I guess he just kind of has been observing me go through these past 7, 8, 9 years on the sideline, because I kind of distanced myself from their covering because they were so protective of me in college.
Right. So you
they
have
did,
all
yeah.
these influences. You've got your family influences. You've got, you know, the first of, well, one of the few to actually attain high school diploma and go off to college, and that's not working for you. And then you've got some emotional things that you're dealing with. So tell me, I want to know about your art. I want to know about what kind of art, what's your medium? Like what's your vision for your art?
Yes, ma'am. Well, so I am a non-objective abstract artist by definition. My medium is mixed media. So non-objective work is where you just don't see it doesn't say it's a house, right? It doesn't look like a house. It doesn't dress like a house. You would have to feel through emotion or idea that the house was present.
Okay.
And that's what you're seeing in imagery conveyed on canvas or canvas-like items. So it could be a building even. I'm a street artist, so by trade. So I'm the type of person that you'd be like driving down the street and you see someone off to the right with an easel, just painting, maybe in a fairy wing setup, but you know, just painting, doing my thing, and I'm emoting. But that's really what my pain is, and just the conversations I can't have out loud. And it's abstract, so it's not necessarily a definitive object that you're looking at, like a bowl or a bowl of fruit. You like I said, you're observing the energy of the fruit. You're observing the presence and the sturdiness of the bowl through maybe bright colors and motion, and it's very inspired by Jackson Pollock. It's very, very inspired by Jean-Michel Basquiat. It's heavily influenced by Edgar Allan Poe. Believe it or not, John Keats. I love Emily Dickinson. I love poetry. I love Shel Silverstein. I love him with my whole life. It's like I said, trauma based. So it's living art. It's performance art, but that's why I call it mixed media. And I didn't even know that, honestly, like I said, even with UNCG, I left school in 2012. I didn't paint my first picture until 2015.
Okay. So did you take a class or you self-taught?
Self-taught.
Self-taught. What was the first work that you created?
It was a 3-piece set from a 3-pack at Michael's of these spray paint images that I did some mixed media work with that I didn't realize I was doing at the time, called Shrooms. And I don't have it anymore because I used to give my art away. But this vintage shop gave me the opportunity to show it. But yeah, it was called Shrooms, and it was no bigger than maybe like a 12 by 16 of 3 images of these taped off lines and like vague images of motion. Yeah, it's really nice. And it was about the art of procrastination, I think. I had spent, so from 2012 to 2015, I had spent those years in the workforce. I had the same job since I was 16, old enough to work with a worker's permit, since from 16 to like 20. So I was trying to work and be an adult and pay bills. So I got all these like customer service call center jobs. And then one day I went to my friend's house, and she was like, I need to go to Michael's for something. And I had on this Sheets uniform. And I was like smelling like the fry section. And we went past this canvas, and I just started picking up stuff. And I didn't realize at the time that I had only grabbed neon colors in spray paint form and like some tape. And I didn't realize why. And I didn't have any brushes. So when I first started painting, the very first picture I ever painted was just me like playing like with my fingers on the canvas. And then I had on my sock. I took my sock off and I started using it to like paint this image into the canvas and taped it off really nicely. And then let it dry. And then I don't know, my friend and I were drinking some wine, some box wine. That's back when box wine was cool. And I was in there and we were like box wine drunk. And I was like, I got angry. It was so sad. I got so angry over a boyfriend I had at the time. And I started ripping the paint, like chipping off the tape. And it pulled back like the canvas. And I remember looking at my friend like, this is cute. And I was like ripping it off. And then she's like, girl, I think you got something there. And this like had been my friend of like, oh my God, maybe 5 years by then. And I remember looking at her and I was like, girl, yeah, I'm gonna have to do more of this. And then from there, she was like, she and another good friend of mine who was also there were like the first two people who ever convinced me that I could actually do art. Because it was like two of my girlfriends.
If your work is so abstract, what do they see? Does it require a lot of interpretation?
I don't have a degree to give a connotation on what people deem as interpretation.
Okay.
But I feel like because it is so non-objective, I don't even name most of my pieces because I do not want you to take my opinion into account at all with what you see when you see it. And I think that's the point, because it makes you feel like you have no choice. Even if you hate it, you felt hate, disregard for that image. And that was the point.
So is it shocking? Like if you show someone work and they walk up and they say, wow, man, this is blank. What do they say?
Different. Or you did this. That's usually the one I get because I have it all through my house. And I don't usually tell people when they first come in, oh, this is all my artwork. I just have art in my home. And so then it could be maybe your third time visiting, and like the third time you come over and I'm like, oh yeah, that's one of my pictures right there. You're like, whoa, what? I saw this the last time. But it's just because that's one of my life mottos is to aspire to obtain no thing, like not nothing, just no thing. And I aspire to be no thing, not just nothing, but just no thing. And my only objective is to be a vessel. Therefore, I can be anything. And my art is that in living color. So it's very influenced, like I said, by emotion, but also by action. Like imagine in a world, have you ever just been so frustrated, like sitting at your desk and like you like bang your hand on the desk, or like you're like, dang it, like shoot, that's like what I call my art, like the oh shoot moment, because it's only inspired by like active events. Like something had to have happened that got me to a point where I had no choice but to lay this canvas down and paint.
Well, that was my next question. How has your work evolved from at the beginning of, when you were a certain age and you started painting, to current events that are happening, to remembering traumas from your past? Do you see, when you look at each piece, like what were you reflecting when you created it, and how has that changed or influenced your next piece?
Yeah, it's kind of scary. I told you I used to give a lot of my art away, and I gave you this fine like preface on like this timeline because like that was the healing process.
Right. Okay.
And I didn't realize that until like I became like 26 like last year.
So can you look at your own? Or do you feel a certain kind of way? Like, I never want to see this again because I don't want to remember that time?
No, believe it or not, it makes me a little emotional because a lot of it, I had to give my art away. You know what I mean? So I had to let go of the emotion at that time. And like, just realizing like now in my late 20s that like me creating a lot in my younger age was like I said, like healing myself, like, so I wouldn't be self-destructive. And it was like me seeing myself like fighting for my life, like literally remembering like where I was, who I was dating, what I was doing, how I was hurting myself because I was just so hurt by so much and didn't have the ability to have a conversation. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's like, you're looking at your 17-year-old self saying, girl, ooh, just get it together. You a mess, honey. Like, ooh, child. but let me hold you, baby. You know, like I just wish someone would have hugged me. You know, like and then like look at the people who did, who took the time to say, "Oh no, baby, you're hurting." I had an aunt who's no longer living right now. Oh my God, she passed so young from breast cancer. She was in her 30s. And she had 3 beautiful children. And I'm telling you, this woman was a butterfly. Like, I mean, literally my spirit animal. And I remember one of the most serious conversations she ever had with me. This woman, like, you ever had, like, and I'm sorry, Miss Rhonda, but I don't know if you ever had, like, your black mama yell at you, like, your black aunt yell at you and check your soul, like, check your whole soul together. Like, she gathered me, sis. Like, she gathered me. And that was one of the, like, it was one of the best conversations like ever. I told my aunt, my other aunt, the one who ended up taking me, my mom's youngest sister, who I was like, yo, like, before, I remember this is like right before she passed. I told her, I was like, yo, me and Aunt Triva had this conversation. Did she tell you? She's like, yeah, she told me a little bit about it, but she didn't tell me everything. And I was like, yo, like she just laid into me something fierce. Like, I think I needed that because I felt something break in me, and all she was telling me was her story of how she ended up with 3 kids, dropping out of college, and she kind of called it like, I see where you're headed type thing. And I want you to know that it's okay not to be okay. Life's just not gonna work out for you sometimes. Things are just not gonna go your way. But
This
it's okay.
is really useful for those who are struggling with mental illness, and
Yeah.
that we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, that there is hope in the unseen, that there's love all around us. So thank you for sharing this.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm like so emotional about it. It's just like,
Apologize.
you know, it's like a hard reality of mine, like these past 90 days. Cause like really, Dr. Jones, like I couldn't tell you like that I would be right here right now having this conversation. Like it's just so much. Like my art is truly just my testimony. I shouldn't be here right now. Like I had so much, and it's just fueled by so much passion because it's my truth. And it's like I can't help but tell the truth.
So
It was this, yeah.
you have this image on the screen. Is that one of your pieces?
Yeah. That's actually the first picture I ever sold.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Those are the colors. So I need to get my piece before you get famous. And
I would love to actually, I was going to say, like, I would love to donate. I donated. So this is crazy. I've been painting under an alias for years. For years, because when I first started painting, like I said, I was a street artist. Greensboro would not let me paint here. For like, they would always get, like, the GPD would give me the hardest time about just being a street artist here.
So
and this is
where was your first street art?
In Winston-Salem, right in front of the Jimmy John's on Cherry Street. And there was a custard shop. And it was like, I was like, hey, Jimmy, like, can I get some water? They're like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm painting. Is it okay? And like, they were like, yeah, sure. Like they just welcomed me. And then it was Charlotte. Winston and Charlotte were the first places. And then word got out that I was doing this. And then people from Greensboro started like advocating for my art. Like, she's from here. What do you mean? I was like,
where was your first piece in Greensboro?
Oh my gosh. So there was a folk festival in 2016 that I didn't know I was a street artist. So I wasn't technically trained in the arts or in the arts community. I had no clue.
You saw a wall and you were like, I could do that?
Like, yeah, I posted up in front of it, and then the police came and moved it. And then they moved me kind of to the outskirts. And I posted a picture on my Facebook, like, hey, I'm outside. And then like droves of people just started like coming to where my art was set up and taking pictures. And I was doing a live piece there. And that was the first time ever. And I kind of like bum rushed the folk festival because I had been for so long, like making my own thing without people knowing, but knowing at the same time. I actually used a lot of the underground to segue. Like I was looking for safe spaces where artists could go by themselves and tag. And I would post up there just as a painter. And it was probably me and some homeless people, but that was it.
Well, I was going to ask, do you go out by yourself or is it a community of artists?
Oh, no, I've always been by myself. It wasn't until I started my collective that anyone would actually even come with me. I had a couple friends, believe it or not, like my friends who had nothing to do on Saturday, but thought it was cool that I was doing that. And then we were like stoned. Like we probably have been smoking all day. And I was like, let's go paint. And they're like, okay, let's go. They would go out and sweat with me in the streets, like for hours, holding my stuff. Like people would talk to them about my artwork. And we would make up these crazy like descriptions because we were trying to like seem cool, but really I needed to express myself and they didn't want me out there by myself. But most of the time I was by myself.
Do you consider yourself to be a political person?
Um, as of late, no, yeah, I've always been because that's why I majored in political science. When I was a young girl, the first thing I told my grandma is I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to go to Harvard and be a lawyer.
And so what was your first protest?
My first rally of support came when I was a young girl in high school. Obama was running for president. And my aunt was in the school system for Guilford County school systems, and they had like a little teachers rally. And a lot of the teachers also went to his inauguration, and I sang in the gospel choir at my high school. We were to go and perform that year, but we didn't get a chance. So we ended up going to New York instead of winning a competition. And I remember going back with my grandma, like, I need to go to this inauguration. And I couldn't go. So I got angry and I ended up going with a group of my friends to like this Obama support rally.
Even though you weren't eligible to vote at that point.
Yeah. Just because I knew like I was from the South Side. Like I promise you, Miss Jones, Dr. Jones. That's all I know. Like that was just like all I've known my whole life is that, girl, you from the South Side. And then it came, girl, you from the South Side is a problem. So girl, I'm from the South Side. Don't touch me. Don't mess with me. To girl, I'm from the South Side. That means something. Go figure it out. And then I'm from the South Side, and oh, now y'all owe me some money.
So how did your work fit into the Black Lives Matter protest movement?
Okay, well, what happened was a group of my friends and I found out about the George Floyd incident, and we collectively had a concern and ended up involved in the protest where we were tear gassed and shot at with rubber bullets.
Oh my goodness.
No, I still have bruises on my leg. We got this beautiful narration from the media of what actually happened, but no one ever accessed the truth. They wanted to put a narrative to it so bad. They put out these gross rumors that people threw bottles and rocks, and that's why the police tear gassed us and shot at us. They put my face on the front of the News and Record under violence and looting, a young Black girl with box braids in her hair, looking rather angry. And girl, we do media, so you know what that means.
Yes.
And I'm sick of that.
Yes.
Because I'm not angry. I'm frustrated. That is a different emotion. It leads to anger. I have a genuine concern. Because if it were your son, it's not a black or white thing for me. It's just a human rights thing for me. If it were your son, I'd be in the street too. And that's the conversation we were having, and we were still tear gassed and shot. And the week after, I still had no voice. I'm a singer in my spare time. I'm an artist across the board. I grew up in an artistic environment, so that's also too why when I discovered art was actually going to be the thing that changed my life, and it's going to have to tie into my politics, my political views. I'm going to have to figure that out somehow, look into my ancestry to make that make sense. Because it's the same thing. I realized at that moment what that meant and what I signed up for. And so, like when we were protesting.
Taken the media to task for that portrayal of you?
I'm sorry?
Have you taken the media to task for that portrayal of you?
So I had people who did it for me.
Okay. It
was very powerful. Like my group of friends were on the bridge when the bridge was closed down, May 30th. My group of friends were the ones who helped close down Gate City. I originally was opposed to closing down Gate City Boulevard. Believe it or not, we had kids with us. I was opposed to closing down the bridge. However, the pivot point for me was when I realized that we had actually physically walked from downtown up to Gate City. You see what I mean? Like it's symbolic. Greensboro, North Carolina, when that started when I went from being emotionally just frustrated to now, wait, You're like, I told you, I've been doing my research. It hit me like a ton, like a V8, that V8 commercial when they like palm you in the forehead.
Yes.
This is important, Virginia. Wake up, Virginia. Don't be woke. Wake up. You know, like you're in the middle of the day. It's 95 degrees outside. People got their kids behind you. You're shouting at this point in the front of the line. At this point, you're leading the rally. Why are you right here right now? Why not you though, right? Like not why, but why not?
Thinker, you think. What are you reading?
Okay, so believe it or not, I, as of late, I have to go grab it. Sorry, I have this beautiful book called The Readings in Presidential Politics. And then I have The Great Issues of Politics that I'm sorry?
Who are the authors?
So Reading in Presidential Politics is by George C. Edwards III. And then The Great Issues of Politics, An Introduction to Political Science is by Leslie Lifson.
Were these your textbooks?
No, actually, they were just books that I found in the library one day. And I was like, I need to know more. Also, too, I'm really heavy into history, just as a whole. And so, believe it or not, a lot of what I know about history is oral. Like I've gone and sat down at people's houses and like talked to them. I've gone to school with their kids. So I've asked certain questions. I've done my research. I put myself in certain environments purposely just to see for myself. And that's how I was raised.
So have you recorded and transcribed these interviews so that they'll be accessible?
No, I have not. Only because a lot of it, even this conversation of it, is a little provocative to the community.
Okay, you could have the Virginia Holmes oral history collection.
I could, which would be a preservation of the minds and kind of like, you know, what historians would look for, but that's the thing. I'm not a historian.
It doesn't matter.
I know, but I'm looking at it from the perspective.
Historian.
I know, but I'm looking at
some history until it's documented.
You're documenting it now.
I'm gonna get back to you. We're gonna circle back.
Yeah, but a lot of these people don't want to have is really to believe it or not, it's the issue of the fact that we have to have the conversation.
Yes, we do have to have a conversation. And that's why oral history is so valuable, because it fills in the gaps. I mean, we know that people wake up every day and make history.
Yeah. But
we don't know if it's not documented and available for research. But we're going to circle back.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it too is like it's different from where if you're a historian, and now you're coming from my family's history, my family's secrets, versus you're in Underwood, so I trust you with my family's history. Absolutely. And I think that's why, because like a lot of what my ancestors and my elders tell me is a lot of our history has to be preserved in the bloodline because of even with a rich name like Underwood, you can think of how many celebrities with that last name. That means something. You have to, it has to make sense across the board. And a lot of what I hope to accomplish with my life's work is to invoke that conversation of where the bloodline actually reaches.
So are you in family history?
Actually, yeah, I'm a part of a huge, my last name, again, my last name is Holmes for my dad's family, and his family's history is even rich, which I wish I was connected with my father enough to where we could talk about that, because I just, for what I know and what research I've done on my own, I can tell that it's very rich history. But my dad and I haven't had a relationship in years. But yeah, my mom's family though, yeah. We are doing heavy research, even to where we're very convinced that reparations might be owed at this point because of that history. It runs deep. And there's a lot I can, even if you would like to, I have a cousin who if you really would like a family's history to see, the Underwood family history. because that's my direct lineage.
That's fantastic.
And from Cameroon, even to the slave owners, even to the land, to how we got to North Carolina, like the county our family founded. Yeah, it's rich history. There is a place in North Carolina, and I'm gonna give you, hold on, because I want to make sure, because we even have our own seal and crest.
Oh my
I was
goodness.
yeah, um, which is crazy because that means that, again, this opens other doors. This, when you do this kind of research, it's like, it almost, like I said, that V8 moment, like I said, why would I put myself, if only, yeah. So Laura Underwood, established in 1856, Sampson County, North Carolina.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're
Virginia,
from Cameroon.
so
I'm
you
sorry?
need to be so busy because now this is all your responsibility. Now you have to do this.
Yes. But I became aware on May 30th what I signed up for. Yes.
Wow.
So my whole life has changed? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But you're on the right path.
It's scary to, for once, feel like you have a purpose in your life. It's really terrifying. I think it requires a great deal of faith that I've never experienced before, but I'm a woman of faith. I'm a heavy believer in Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. And they even crucified Jesus. They even crucified Jesus. So why then am I exempt from a journey like this? If anything, why not me? You saw me, a little girl from the South Side, a little Project Rose, a little Section 8 baby, a little baby kid, as a vessel to do this work.
So
Challenge accepted. Challenge accepted. I'm sorry.
do you see yourself as a continuum of the larger struggle of African American self-determination?
Um, if anything, I see myself as kind of a catalyst. Like that saying of, like, many are called, but few are chosen.
Yes.
I would be in the few, but
Okay.
with a genuine intent of, wait, there was this group of kids that were just born in this small cluster of time that would see certain things that would inspire them to change the world, and are willing to sacrifice and are willing to go above and beyond to see that these things are accomplished. I don't think it would play into anything but exploiting the problem in a way that will evoke change, radical change, residual change, to invoke generational wealth. I think what we just did was the biggest FU to corporate worlds, America, to anybody who believed in the 9-to-5 strategy, because all that was done and created by daydreamers, millennials, on their cell phones. I think it was iconic, and I'm so excited for where it's going.
So tell me more about that.
Yes. Okay. So the whole setup for May 30th was through a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram thread that just kind of kicked off. Actually, I did not start. A huge misunderstanding is that my friends and I were the only ones who started the rallies. Actually, no, we were one of maybe 9 individual groups who started the rallies, but we were the only group who had the stamina to keep it going. And that, I think, is what separated us from them, which is that we all have the same idea. We all have the same belief system. We all have the same ideology, but the stamina was a different thing. And it was because we had been outside. Like, we are the collectives I run in, the house I run in, we literally, I was texting my friend Savannah, telling her, after talking to 2 of my very close friends, Friday night, I was telling her, Saturday morning, I'm going outside. I'm going outside. And I had this beautiful, now I do have that text chain, and I wish we could have like screen recorded like how fast between the responses we were texting each other, because unbeknownst to me, I didn't know that she was on her way to Raleigh. May 30th, Raleigh, there was Greensboro, but then there was Raleigh.
Right.
There was also Fayetteville. There was also North Carolina was on fire.
Yes.
May 30th. And she was in Raleigh, getting gas in Raleigh. I didn't know, but we were texting, and I'm like, girl, don't you go outside. I'm going outside. I got us. We outside. Cartwheel emoji. and to find out that she was outside, but only going with the intention of answering a Facebook message from my homeboy Nick, who went live on Facebook like, hey, just in case y'all were curious what's going on your Saturday, you good streets, boom. And I had just told my friend on Friday, I don't know why I feel this way in my heart of hearts, because George Floyd done reached up to Greensboro, North Carolina. And I got to tell y'all a story. And I told them about how I went to high school with a girl at the academy. I went to the academy at Smith. My homegirl went to Smith High School. 2010, GPD murdered her brother in the backyard of her house.
Oh my God.
No, for real. And the story is that's the story that got me on the front line. That's the stamina, the energy. When I became Harriet Tubman, was when I was outside and I'm out here shouting George Floyd. I remember calling my best friend, telling her, girl, I'm about to go outside. They out here protesting in Greensboro. It's up and it's stuck. Translation in the community of the millennials, it's about to go down. I know the people are outside, but see, we as a people, we know our family members very well, right? So you have your mom, you have your dad, but then you got your cousins, right? And so when your cousins are outside, you know what your mama tell you, don't you leave your family. Yeah. And I know my collective, we come in peace, but my cousins are outside. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, wait, like y'all maybe need a peace translator, right? Is that what you need, a peace translator? Or do you need, and the energy honestly was brewing all morning. Believe it or not, the conversation was had all morning of like, what we about to, no, it's okay. But see, if nothing we learned during the time of Brother Malcolm is that sometimes peace is not going to be the conversation that gets the jargon across. You know, even Dr. King said that rioting is a language. So we know that you can't have one without the other. But how do you contain a fire? Do you trap it? Do you try to just genuinely extinguish it? Do you take the oxygen out of it? That's still by force. You have to show it love. You have to let it self-kindle until either it settles itself or it burns itself out. That's the country girl in me. And I feel like at that time, I'm texting my friends, we're talking about what we're going to do. We get outside and all I could see are the faces of the people who look like me, where I'm from, to realize, oh, wait, no. I know all these kids. I went to school with all these kids. I looked around me and I'm looking at, I know your mama. You know what I mean? Like that was the conversation. It didn't become nothing but a responsibility for each other. And we all out here with the same problem. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, Dr. Jones, if I'm like, because then it became an ownership of each other. And now looking at, like, it was literally the part of like, there was no conversation and all you can see are just looks being exchanged with each other, understanding, no, we are all out here for the exact same reason. This is really happening. Looking at the kids, the mothers off on the side of the road with the extended hands of prayer, weeping on the side of the roads, encouraging us to go forward. People bringing out of their businesses cases of water, telling us to keep going. That was that. And it started out with the energy of our ancestors on our back saying, and you got to keep going. Per my previous statement. This is not okay. This is not what we're doing. I don't understand what the problem is. We're very civil people. You're wanting this issue to arise, and I feel they really want a war, but we're better than that. We keep showing you that we're better than that. We're better than that.
So what do you say to the people who say this is not okay? You need to go home and you need to go sit down somewhere.
Doing nothing is still doing something. So if I'm going to die regardless, I'd rather have tried to see what the end was going to be. I'm not going to just die because I'm supposed to die and live and die. No, that's not how this is going to work, because clearly, if that was the case, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Now, would we? It would be a different energy here. And it's not. And I think where we're from, believe it or not, because that was the conversation. That's why I said it's not earlier. It's not a white or black issue. It's a human rights issue, because even from the community had so much to say because it ended in rioting. But then how can you tell slaves they're still slaves? To make them understand, like, you can't, this is a dialogue of the broken. You can't have one without the other. We're not going to march 25 miles for nothing. Not that we're coming to riot, but if there then is another group that comes and their love language is pain and hurt, and they choose the art of destruction, is it not still art? And then what do we do with art? We heal with it. We heal with it. And all of it was a collective effort of expression. No, we can't contain the fire sometimes, but you just have to let it burn.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I don't know. I just started. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
So Virginia, I mean, this has been a very emotional conversation, and you talked about being put in harm's way. You talked about art as healing. So how do you practice self-care?
I'm an artist in every way. So I truly feel like expression is key. So if I'm dancing, I'm singing, I'm painting, I'm writing, I'm having conversation with friends, I'm always engaging in some sort of art form. I think it's important. Sometimes, like I said, like, I think painting is the conversation I can't have. I'm not really good with conversations because I think I might like really have like a condition or something. I'm not sure. But like, I feel like sometimes I tend to talk in circles, and that's something that I feel offends a lot of people who are like trying to be to the point and specific. I'm pretty sure like even like in this, you're like, oh, she's going off topic, but like, you know, like that's really,
I feel like a voyeur, and I'm just like a fly on the wall watching this from the ceiling, you know?
Really? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. You can't see me, but I'm on the edge of my seat.
Oh my God.
I'm leaning in.
Oh my gosh. Like, it's
almost on the screen, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, but like, that's my reality though. Like, if I told you I couldn't make it up, would you believe me? And this is like, even with this conversation, like I told you, I told my aunt and my grandma, I was like, I'm going to be talking to the museum today. And she's like, girl, no, you're not. I said, no, for real. I'm going to be talking to the museum today. And my grandma's on the phone, like weeping. Remember when she first bought me my first Michael's pack? And she was like, you told me that you would do this one day, and I laughed at you. And I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, grandma, you told me that I could do this one day. That's how I told you I would do it. And it's like, you know, thinking about moments like that, it's even like what this is for, you know, like the art and activism, the artivism that's taken place here is nothing that hasn't been done before, but it's personified through my actions in a way that brings it to life, that makes it relevant to this moment. Had it not been me that dually was on the bridge, that was tear gassed and shot at, who equally then turned around and created this mural that is now gone viral. I don't know if you've seen it, but yeah. It has. I don't think we'd be having this conversation today. It just so happens also to add insult to injury, I guess, to anybody who might be offended that it's a young Black girl with an afro from the south side of Greensboro. Oh, by the way, she's from the south side of Greensboro.
So you've been defying stereotypes, you know, from the very beginning.
Yeah, literally.
Hashtag.
Literally. When they say product of my environment.
You know, be who you are. That's fantastic. How much do you spend on art supplies? Just like.
Oh my gosh, too much money. And it's probably gonna make you cringe.
No, probably not.
No, I don't sell my artwork.
Yeah, but I mean, you're a philanthropist, you know?
Yeah. Like, I don't believe that. I believe in its value, but I don't believe in its value associated with price.
Monetary.
Right. And so I probably spend each piece anywhere between $200 and $300. Just because if whatever I don't use, I'm going to use it at some point. And I always use everything until the last drop because I grew up poor. So my mom always told me, you don't waste that. You use that.
So it's abstract. Do you do collages? Do you use mixed materials?
So collage, no. Abstract mixed materials, yes. So it's very when I say mixed media, so it could have like pieces of wood in it. It could have pieces of shavings in it. Things have fallen. My cat, even right now, is currently on top of a painting right now that is supposed to be curing. And, it could have like a resurfacing adjustment from where a paw print might set into it.
Okay.
When I was smoking, it could have been a cigarette butt. It could have been a joint paper. It could have been like I paint barefoot, a toe print, like, and this could be a toe print that been set and casted in glitter because I, maybe had a wet picture to the side of my dresser because I also, when I first was painting, lived in a 1-bedroom studio apartment. So a lot of my pictures were dusted with like foundation and like lashes, like, believe it or not, like I've even had like some crazy nights where I found like some like resin on pictures. I had this crazy incident where I ended up dropping a makeup kit and like it fell into some Mod Podge. And I just left it in the Mod Podge because I didn't know that it had fallen into the Mod Podge. And then when I got back, it was half dried. So I just took it and kind of like dumped it out and it fell into this canvas and I just left it. And it was just like these reverse images of like, it just happened the Mod Podge was the clear gloss kind. It casted out this beautiful, like kind of murky idea of beauty. And I remember seeing that image and thinking, oh, I want to paint on this canvas now. And I ended up taking that casted 3-dimensional thing, painting over it completely, something completely different, unrelated to how it originally started. And that's usually 9 times out of 10 how my art works. I could send you a video of how I got to the final project of that mural. And it's going to blow your mind. You're going to be so irritated with me. I have friends. No, I'm serious. I have my friends and I used to do this running joke back when I would do all the things that not that UNCG condones drugs, but I was at UNCG with the liberal arts students. And so I was there as a young girl from the hood, never having many white friends, just, oh my God, y'all are so cool. Like, what's going on here? My mama livid. My aunt livid, girl, I have some home training. And I'm like, girl, I'm living my life. I got to go to Appalachian State. I was having my time, but I ended up in Boone with the mountain people doing shrooms. And so there hence is why I guess I did all the radical colors influence came. But believe it or not, it was just another way to correlate a message. And so I would have friends that we would have gatherings that we would literally just sit around and probably drink the box wine when it was cool. And I would paint. I would just start painting on something. It could be the floor, literally your physical floor. And I'm doing these crazy designs or whatever, and then I'll grab like something beside me. It could be like a piece of paper or a piece of cardboard, and then I'll stack it, and I'll start using it as a tool to manipulate the picture or the color paint that I'm using, but then forget that it's there because naturally now I'm under the influence, and then somehow it like molds over into now a part of the picture, and now I have this 3-dimensional, 2-dimensional, 5-dimensional thing happening that I'm creating this art form that I didn't understand was actually a form of modern art mixed with avant-garde, which is a little bit still of, the culture now. Had no clue that I was being self-taught this very, very strategic and I guess apparently, according to artists and real artists and art historians and such, this very critical style of abstraction. Very heavy non-objective work, but equally influenced by all that is art because it is comprised and inspired by every faction of the art. So it's very, very, very God-given, this talent that I've acquired. I can't take credit for any of it, but I'm thankful that it happened to me.
And we're thankful that you can share your gift with us.
Oh my God. Yes, ma'am. And I'm thankful that you haven't been irritated with me on this call. I'm so sorry.
Not at all. Not at all. You've been blessed with so many different talents, and we're just appreciative and we're grateful.
Thank you. Yes. That picture that I painted, I painted it maybe 3 days after the protest, and I could barely talk. So I didn't say much the whole time. I was alone with my thoughts. I was by myself for a great part of it. I had some people come and join me after because they knew I was going to be out there. But when I first came out to paint, I was very much with my own thoughts. I think I told my good friend Brandon at the time that I was going to go paint because he was usually the one I would call when I was going to do something reckless. I'm not going to go because if I people come looking for me, you have to have that one person who talked to you last. That's just how I always thought of it. Like I'm going to go. That's how I would tell my mom too. I'm going to go to Winston by myself. But I told Brandon where I was going. So if you need me, just call Brandon. My phone is dead though, so you might not get a hold of me. But don't panic. I'm fine. And that was me. And then that's how actually my friends ended up calling me like things like a fairy, glitter, butterfly, because literally it was like I would go flutter off into these byways and highways, and I would just come back unscathed, just probably covered in heavy paint and glitter. That's it. But I came back and I'm fine. And that's like one of those things that I would tell my mom, like I wouldn't have the energy or stamina to even do that if it weren't for her ever telling me to do it afraid. Like no matter what it is you have to do, if you're going to say you're going to do something, do it anyways, no matter the cost. Like what's the worst that can happen? And maybe she was crazy for that, but I thank her for that. My aunt, like, has she never told me that I could do anything? I would never try anything. Has she never told me that even if I was scared, like, oh, so it's okay. Even if I'm scared, it's okay to be scared. Like it's okay to be scared, angry, frustrated. Has she never told me that? I would have never known. But she didn't tell me that until after all that happened with my mom, because she didn't get a chance to, right? Because she ended up taking me in after the fact. But when she finally told me, that's what changed my life.
So Virginia, what's next for you?
Well, I have my hands in everything these days. Like I said, for the first time, I feel like I have a purpose. And so besides owning every business in the world, I want to focus on curating a nonprofit with my partners, the House of Lax.
Yeah.
I own one of the few self-funded, self-sponsored, unaffiliated collective houses in the city of Greensboro. And I'm an active member, part of the underground culture of the city of Greensboro. I own an artist collective called the Hayes Artist Collective. And we have been operating underground in Greensboro for about 5 years. Actively for 3 years as a house here in the city, an underground house. They do exist. they're really nice little art groups here that do a lot for the city. But the crime rates are decreasing substantially. The city does a 5-year environmental plan every year. We're working to change the 5-year environmental plan.
Wow.
So that's something that we want our credit for it. So that's what I'm working on. And I'm going back to UNCG. I actually am raising money to go back to school because I need to finish my political degree. I'm trying to take the bar in 2 years.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't want to be Hillary Clinton. No, I want to be like president. But not just president, though. I want to be like Congress first, then president. I know you probably can't do both, but I'm going to figure out a way to do both. I'm going to figure out a way to shake the room. I'm going to be a culture changer. Like I said, I realized I was going back to college when I stood on the front line May 30th and again on May 31st. Not just shouting no justice, no peace, but seeing my system fail me.
Yes.
In lieu of, like, on the 31st, we were secured by GPD. Not that I have a beef with them or anything. I just don't understand how you're supposed to protect people, but in the lieu of danger, you leave. We were 400 deep with children and grandmas. And when we get in front of the Civil Rights Museum, they left us. There was a tweet that went out, alerting the protesters and the Quakers in the group that there were white supremacist groups coming downtown to antagonize the groups, and they were armed. We weren't armed. We intentionally never showed up armed. The ones who did so because they know their rights. And so I find it very funny that some people were even arrested for those things, but yet left abandoned. See, there's a bigger issue. And I told you about my friend. I'm going to help my friend get justice for her brother's life. I'm working on so many things because I know exactly what I signed up for. It makes sense to me now. It's a very scary thing to know your purpose in life. And I'm okay with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we conclude this interview, is there anything else you'd like to add? Any last words?
The only thing I would like to say is just thank you again for this opportunity. I don't know who will hear this, but I would like to say that if you're that 17-year-old girl, that it's okay not to be okay, and that all of your wildest dreams can come true. If you're the 27-year-old girl reflecting on your 17-year-old self, not sure if you'll make it to 37, 47, or 57 and beyond, just know that you're just getting started, girl. And yeah, that's it.
Do you know anyone else that might be interested in participating in this project?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure that I could reach out to, I'm trying to see, I don't know who all you've already spoken to, because I know you've spoken to Azariah.
Not yet. We just started, so we are putting together a list of names. But if you know of anyone, just email me or have them get in touch with me.
Yeah, Azariah was on the front line with me Saturday when when the collective took over.
Okay.
Because my collective didn't take over in the protest until the 5 p.m. because it was very, maybe I should have said that earlier. A lot of people didn't know this, but it was very organized both days.
Okay.
The protests, and actually, believe it or not, all of them, every single one of them, the artists were very intentional, even to the murals downtown. It was very intentional why we chose murals and not just black paint.
So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, actually, because we touched on it a bit, and then I kind of got really emotional. But something that's very important to understand is that this artivism that people are seeing is not the first time this ever happened, and not in a city like Greensboro, not anywhere in the world. Like when anthropologists go and study cultures, they look at the art in the trash for a reason. Before cavemen ever built the wheel, it was because they had poop and did pictures on the wall that people knew what they were talking about. And mud and clay, and then we created artifacts, and then here we are with things and such. And I think it's very important to look at the fact, like I said, like I was one of many collective houses out there, artists, entrepreneurs, kids, ages between 18 and 36, 40 and up, entrepreneurs. These kids between that demographic chose a way to kind of let the world know, hey, we're here and we're tired of this. If it's not going to be equal rights that we get, if we just can't be seen as normal people, we can't be seen as business owners, we can't be seen as artists, activists, then we must be. But we must activate our communities. And I think that was the purpose. And I don't want that to be misunderstood. Like that was a conversation that it was understood. It didn't have to be had. It was understood for years. We've been outside for years. I told you we started the conversation out with me trying to paint downtown in my own city. Greensboro is one of the only places. Do you know what the Cardinal Program is?
No, I don't.
The Cardinal Program is an institution that allows libraries across the state of North Carolina to share resources. Do you know that Guilford County is one of the only counties, if not the only one, but one of many, one of the few, very, very few in the state that does not allow this program as a resource to its communities? The libraries are located in the inner city communities of Greensboro, North Carolina. Why is this? If systematic racism does not exist, then why is it that we cannot have natural resources available to us from our state? It is because you must keep the city dumb. Then why is that possible if you don't have the resources? I understand that, to your point too, when we talk about the oral history, why it's important to have oral history. But
So
it's bigger than.
How do you know about this Cardinal Program?
Because I went to the library.
And how did you know to ask about it?
I didn't. I went for a library card, and they told me. And I went for a library card in Winston-Salem.
Okay.
I ended up, so from Greensboro, right? Issue. This is why I had to, you see what I'm saying? It wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just one thing. It's egregious. The city is being allowed to do so much. And it's not the city, it's the officials and the people. And I could really go there, and it's kind of scary. It would tear you apart how deep this really goes. It's not a conspiracy. It's really prevalent, like on your chin, in your face. Like, and I just broke it down, library stats. Why is it important not to give this? If you think about the Vance Chavis branch, if you think about all the branches of libraries and where they're located in the city, they're by communities that need these resources, and they cannot have them because Guilford County does not allow them. Why does Guilford County not allow them? And this is research coming from the research triangle.
But
from
this is a state-funded program.
Understand, right? And if that's the case, then why is it not there? Because the county can vote it in or not. It's left as an option. It's not a requirement. This program here, it's a program, right? So if you have a nonprofit and you have a program of it, you can turn it on and off if you want. It's almost like one of those things that would have to be elected by what? A chamber of commerce or a city council to fund and have it housed here. I'm putting.
Is this that initiative that the House of Blacks is going to take up for the next referendum?
So that's an approach. That's an approach that I think we're interested in. It's one of those things. The House of Blacks wants to be a resource beacon. We do not in any way want to associate ourselves with proactive protests. We are more advocates than anything. We're the ones who will say, hey, that's not okay. This is not okay. And someone should know about this. And here's the information you need to know about this. And this is why now you as a community need to go do something about it, to activate the communities. But now my collective house, the Hayes Art, that's a different thing. Because me as Virginia, being a product of my environment, these 5-year environmental plans I'm telling you about, my collective, the House of Blacks, is a diverse house. It's multicultural. My collective is significant because it's all Black. It's Black owned, 100% across the board. The board of directors, everybody's Black. And the collective houses that we associate ourselves with in the underground are all Black owned. And we've been able to do what we've done successfully for the past 5 years by not putting ourselves on the forefront. But May 30th, we did for the first time. So my initiative is, yes, to go and change these things, but also to educate my business partners and friends on how we can establish enough, not collateral is not the word I want to use, but equity to have these types of conversations in rooms with people who can actually do something about it. Proof of concept, I think is what they call it in the community. We need proof of concept.
Well,
yeah.
That's the first I've heard of it. And I mean, I feel like if you don't know, then you can't show.
Right. Yeah, that's how I ended up on the News and Record after the May 30th protest. That's why I was so frustrated with that article and me being under violence and looting. Because you want to know what I was actually saying on the front line? GPD covers up murders. Our library system is killing the community. They're poisoning the well. The postmaster lives in Greensboro, but nobody believed me then. Trump ate at the clubhouse when he came here in his election campaign. The great thing is I didn't go to A&T. But I'm an Aggie, born and bred. I grew up on the south side of Greensboro, so I'm an Aggie by heart. You don't have to go to A&T to be an Aggie. This is Aggie land. If you're from Greensboro, this is Aggie land.
Right.
Okay? But I went to UNCG, and I learned to read the back of the book, if that makes sense. And that's a huge analogy to say I just started paying attention to a lot more. I think had I been in that environment, I would have not had the opportunity to just be silent and listen and pay attention to what was really, I don't want to just feel good. I'm tired of making people feel good for a moment. I'm tired of feeling like everything's okay. And actually, no, it's really jacked up around here. Like, come on, let's talk about it. I heard about Tate Street. And even when Tate Street was desegregated, to even how still then, it's a little bit iffy over there. Thank you, though, the indie culture that has taken over. But even then, a lot of the indie culture still don't fool with the Afro culture. But they want the culture so bad. And that's my issue, Miss Rhonda Jones. I'm sorry, Miss Dr. Rhonda Jones. I'm not giving the culture for free no more. The price has gone up. And I have a grievance. And so the only way I can figure it out is to go finish my degree, go back to UNCG, finish my degree. That's where I felt that so heavy in my heart. And whatever I have to do to get back in school is what I'm going to have to do to get back in school. I'm self-funded, self-sponsored. So I know what that's going to consist of, a lot of hard work, but I'm built for it. But when I take this bar exam, I'm sorry to whoever, I'm just sorry to these people. I'm so serious. I've had enough. I've had the audacity to go down to the Greensboro Public Library and read in the history section of the Greensboro Library about the history of Greensboro, and I found the slave codes. The reason I talked about Warnersville when I got on the phone is because I read the environmental plan that turned that community into Section 8 homes. My grandmother was there. My great aunts were there. This is deeper than I think it was supposed to be originally for me when I first went out there and got that text. Yeah, I had already read all this prior to that. I guess the Lord had been planning and preparing for me to just know this information this whole time. Because when I was out there on the front line, the reason why those police officers were so angry with me is not that I was just shouting, oh, F the police. No, I did maybe once or twice, but mostly was talking about the history, talking about Tremel Wilkins, Marcus Dion Smith, who was hogtied outside the folk festival and murdered in front of Natty Green by the GPD. The drug money, the Vaughn family. How is it that Nancy Vaughn is our mayor? Let's talk about it. Amen. But her husband, Donald Vaughn, the DUI king of District 18, before it was redistricted, of course, because now it's still District 18, but he's still the DUI king, is also the representing attorney for all of these police on Black crimes. If you go, because it's public information, into the history of any police on Black crime that has happened in Greensboro since that man has been an attorney here, he's probably represented, if not all of the police officers in the police department as a whole, but most of it, for sure. And that woman is our mayor. And he also sits on the ACC board. And you know how I know that? Because it just so happened that when I was 18 years old, I got a job at the Coliseum and I met him in real life. And he represented a friend of mine for a DUI. And I remember who he was. Even though he didn't know I was serving him tea and water, I remember who he was. And then I became a 20-something and learned who he really was. And why it was so easy for him to get my friend off the DUI with nothing but a slap on the wrist as a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl who I love and adore. But then I saw how he equally represented another friend of mine, charged him double, and he ended up with probation. Didn't understand it then. I know it now. This is not hard facts. This is not anything but the local news that you would never hear, because also, too, the News and Record works for our mayor. The Rhinoceros Times only circulates in small inner city communities, and that would be in the Lindley Park community, that Friendly Center area, the Bryce community, the historic battleground. That's what the Rhinoceros Times circulates. You won't see a vendor like that on the project side. Actually, where was the last time you saw a newsstand that took them off of Bessemer long ago? I think that was one of the last living communities that would have a newspaper stand like that. The less you know, the more it's easy. The more you're easily accessible. But the more you know, and the more you have somebody who can give these resources to you inadvertently in your face, maybe just a random QR code on your door one day. You have an iPhone, so you know how to scan it. And now you have a resource, like an app, that auto-generates information for you. When things like certain bills are passed or city council meetings are happening, you find a different avenue. And so then it puts me as a young woman in a position where, there's the House of Blacks and then all these inner city collectives, that instead now it's not my position to be attached to one necessarily, Miss Jones. But actually, I think I just found my place in all of them. And that, yeah.
You are using your position to educate, inform, and share resources.
Yeah, because that's the only problem, is that nobody just knows. I'm pretty sure if people knew this information, they would have an issue.
Absolutely.
So then, and then you know what they'll say? Oh, well, we put it in the newspaper. Yeah, you did. That doesn't reach anywhere but 10% of your population.
But I think, you just made a very interesting point about using QR codes. I mean, where I always ask young people, where do you get your information? And how do you know that it's trustworthy? And if you're taking people directly to the source, what's the point in having all of this technology if you're not using it for something purposeful?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great idea. You know, when a bill is up for voting, or there's a referendum about to be passed, that you have access to the language, that you can decipher and discern
Mm-hmm.
for yourself. What does this mean and how does this affect me?
Right.
So now you've got one more thing to add to your list.
Right. Seriously. No, seriously.
That's
And
fantastic.
it's like, yeah, it's gonna come at no great thing, like no great achievement comes without sacrifice. And we know this, but like it's gonna come with a great deal of like discipline. Like you don't become a disciple for nothing. It comes with discipline. And that's what I feel like I've been disciplined for the past like 8 years of my life. Well, I'm 27, 10 years. It'll be 10 years in October then. Yeah. Yeah. And this has been one of the most game changing moments ever for me. But it was like I said, somebody punched me in the forehead and was like, hey, pay attention. Wake up. Like that old Spike Lee film at the end. Wake up. I was like, and that was my guardian angel, like, girl, if you don't get your wake up. Get it together. And then, like I said, you know, it made you kind of question, like, why are you doing this?
Right.
Because you know good and well, if you do all this and it's for nothing, the damage that'll be done. Because the community hurts the community too.
You know, exactly. So it's all about, you know, legitimacy and authenticity and being an example. And if people are following you and they're seeing and there's some doubt and they're just, you know, there's some wavering, that's not good.
Right. That's why I'm going to have to discipline, because I woke up Saturday morning, May 30th, just a normal girl. I left that night a whole different person. So I quit my job. My last day at work is October 1st.
And you are devoting yourself full time to being an activist, to being an artist.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, as you should. You're just following your destiny. That's all. That job was standing in your way.
I feel like it. Yeah. I
So
was
are you
terrified.
an entrepreneur? What businesses are you doing?
Okay. So the House of Wax is becoming a nonprofit. It's a lot of work. The artist collectives, we are in your community already. You wouldn't even know it. We're so much closer than you think. I have a radio show that I do with one of my collective houses called the Collective GSO. We actually have a segment on 103.1 WUAG every Saturday from 2 to 5. And that is our social status update. Every weekend, we're giving it to you live through UNCG's platform about the culture and cultural issues and making it relative for the people. And so that's one. I have decided to invest full time in my art life. And so I was very humble about it, but I'm an international artist, Miss Rhonda.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, I have art in Italy, in Russia, in St. Petersburg, and in Florence, Italy.
That you've given away to these institutions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because you never know, right? You just never know. Turns out it worked so much in my favor because these two particular galleries, they'd never had an American before.
That's great.
So then you know what that means, right?
Yes, I do.
So it's lit. But then COVID-19. And so what I did was that I
How did they find you?
Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, sad story. 2018, my original Hayes Art page was hacked, and I was building an arsenal of like high-end commission opportunities with like new boutiques, these Instagram influencers who were well established in themselves, but like had also been in the mud, but kind of like I was like their fan favorite follower, but not like in a like gross, like, oh, I'm stalking you online type of thing. But like, you know, you just kind of see that one person just supports you all the time. And A lot of them turned successful, and then I started my artistry, and then they turned supportive of my artistry. And it wasn't like they were all actively purchasing, but they would send kind words of support. They would give me 1 second. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry, my nephew. He's coming for fruit. I'm so sorry if you hear him in the background. I owe him fruit, and he's been fussing for fruit. But no, but they would turn supportive, and then they in turn allowed me to have the opportunity to like have their platform, like share their platform with them. And if you give me 1 second, Ms. Rhonda, just give me 1 second. I have to hand him this fruit. I'm so.
I'll pause.
We were. Could you remind me where we left off before we paused?
Well, you were talking about your international
Yes,
to these galleries.
yes. Oh, so yeah, they were given. I'm sorry, if you're ready, you can let me know.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
ready. Yeah, it's fine.
But yes, yes, they're all gifted. But they like I said, through their essential leveling up, they became very supportive and aware that like, oh, they have somebody who's very supportive of them. And it kind of like through these acts of kindness is how I got to know people through Instagram. Even though I've never met them in real life. And one particular gallery, the Roca, or the Rock Art Gallery in Florence, Italy, owned by Fabio Roca, is one that was the first time. And that happened for me very quickly, that I felt that I could do something real with my artwork. Before that, I had only had one other instance where I knew I could potentially have some type of energy. I just didn't see it getting beyond Greensboro. But when the gallery in Florence, Italy reached out to me, through them is how I met the gallery in St. Petersburg. But it came with them, essentially, that they let me do 2 showings, and I sent off artwork to them in 2017 that landed in a expressive installation, and I was featured as their only American in that showing. And they, at the time, did not know that I was a woman or male or Black. But through following me on Instagram, we had to send our bios over.
So have you done any juried art?
I tried one juried event in Raleigh, where I was told that my artwork was infant at best.
You said you hadn't matured enough.
Yes, and I guess looking back at it, I don't know. I'm sensitive, so I think I've always been pretty dope. But I'm just kidding. But no, looking back at it, I guess because I'm still not technically trained even to this day. That's also too what's kept me very sane as an artist, is that I never had anyone tell me, "Oh, your work is trash," until like I actually reached out to someone who had like a degree in it. And they were like, "Oh no, your work is terrible, but I see what you're doing. Keep going." No, it's no museum. And he literally was like, "No museum probably will hang this," and I was like, "Oh shit," but okay. And then I ended up in a museum as an archive.
last best.
I know. Yeah. That's crazy how life works. And my mom, that's crazy. My aunt was telling me yesterday. She said, you told me. I was like, you told me first that it could. That's when I told you it would.
So do you go abroad to see your work hang?
Yes. I would love to host my own showing at a museum. Like, if that's one of my biggest dreams, I would love to be able to do it here in Greensboro. I would love to have a day, like an opportunity to do an actual collection. Like, and I would love to do it here before it ever went international, but I have a feeling that it would probably happen international before it ever happened here.
Well, that's the case. You always have to be famous somewhere else before you're recognized at home.
It's so tragic. But yeah, I really do. I'm actually trying to save up to get my passport to be able to travel internationally. But I would love to go just see it and see, because actually it was archived. The first set I ever did was archived there in the actual gallery, in the curator's personal collection of art, and will stay there permanently. And so I would love to, beyond just going to Italy, just go see my artwork. And then in Russia, okay, that was kind of by hapstance. And I don't have contact with that place anymore, but they just needed extra pieces. And then I jumped in someone's DM and was like, hey, well, I've done work at this gallery, and I know that a couple of your artists have too. I'm from America. Like, do you all accept Americans? And I didn't know that was a thing in European culture, but you have to ask if they accept Americans sometimes, because they don't.
So is this change now that you say that I'm a protest artist affiliated with Black Lives Matter?
I was scared to tell the gallery in Italy because I was concerned, because Black Lives Matter is not just a US issue. I don't know who my neighbors are anywhere.
Right.
So I was really terrified because I didn't want to, mess up an opportunity, but of course, naturally, into my natural instincts, do it anyways. And so I messaged the gallery owner and let him know, and I sent him like pictures and like articles. And I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, because I haven't sent him art this year because of COVID. But I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me from last year, and the year before, but I want to let you know this is what I've been doing. As of late, I've done work, and I just wanted to inform you that if you have any opportunity for international archiving, I have some things I want to submit to you. And then he wrote me back, and he was like, oh my God, I thought that was you.
This was recently. This happened recently?
Yeah. He was like, oh my God, you're doing such a great job. I thought that was you. You made it to Italy.
That's great. So now do you say that you are a protest artist, or are you just going to be anonymous?
I'm an artivist. Yeah. I'm not just a protest artist. I'm an artist.
Artivist. Okay.
Yeah. I'm just an artist. I don't, because again, abstraction, right? I'm not objective.
Right.
So the objective will form itself.
Okay.
And I will be where I need to be, but I'm an ally. I'm a safe passage. I'm a safe space. I'm a curator. I'm also from the South Side, so if you need me, call me. We will pull up. So it's just like I'm wearing many hats. But when I have on the white hat, I'll be there every time on the front line.
Virginia, we have to stop at some point. I don't want
I know.
But I am so very proud of the work that you're doing. I'm so happy to have this conversation with you. I can't thank you enough. I'm so appreciative of you sharing your gifts and your experiences with me and with all of us, our current listeners and future, because this is going into the record. This will be archived. This will be transcribed and made available and accessible for anyone who wants to learn and listen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am super excited to hear these theories that unravel from this conversation. Again, my perspective is my perspective. I don't want to form anyone's opinion about my reality, but I think that the biggest thing that's going to be the game changer is that people just need to educate themselves. And anyway, because I don't read every day. It's not always going to be reading that you're going to find yourself educated. Sometimes it's going to just be you going places that you wouldn't usually go.
Right.
Doing things you wouldn't usually do, to see the things you wouldn't usually see, to know more.
Well, thank you so much. And I wish you continued success in all that you do.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones.
Continue to be a beacon of light, continue to shine. I wish your family well in COVID and after, and you stay safe. And to all of you in the collective, keep persevering. We'll be watching. We'll be listening.
Thank you. Thank you. If you ever need us to do anything,
and likewise, I was about to say, if we could be of any assistance, if you have some type of virtual campaigns or some type of activity that you want us to know about, let us know. Let us how we can support you and all of your other, the collective and all of your other friends. So don't hesitate to use us as a resource as well.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe we can work on that exhibit. I'm just kidding. I'm just
Well,
kidding.
you and I are going to circle back for a whole bunch of things.
So I'm super I was going to tell you, I don't know, I think I forget the lady's name who's the director of the historic museum, the history museum.
Uh-huh.
But I think I tickled her so bad the other day, like with this conversation, we had a bit of this conversation that she looked at me like pale face and was like, so wait, so are you in school now? Or I was like, because I get that all the time when people will say, well, I'll sit and talk to you. And I'm just like amazed at all this. Like, where are you finding life? I'm just living. So yeah, thank you again, Ms. Jones.
So welcome. I think you should teach a class about Weeksville.
I'm sorry?
You should teach a class on Weeksville.
Right. I probably should.
You really should, because I'm sure people who have grown up and have been storied legacy like you don't know half of this information.
Yeah, Warnersville is a rich history. Again, a place of
I'm
free
sorry,
people.
I'm at Warnersville. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. But yeah, it was an established place for free people who were then inadvertently returned back to slavery. Like, it's crazy. The narrative and having technically I would be the product of the case study that was rolled out in that environmental plan. And so
that's what makes you legit.
yeah.
That's what authenticates the story.
Yeah. So I told you before, somebody I'm pretty sure is going to have to say their piece real soon. I'm coming for what's mine. The South remembers. The South Side remembers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Put your claim in.
Amen. Amen.
Amen, sister. All right. Well, I'm going to stop now, but I thank you again. And again, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Give me a nod. Let me know how we can help. And we're going to upload these interviews. They'll be available on YouTube and on our website. But, once we get through what we're doing, we'll certainly let you know.
No problem. And like I said, I know that I'm shooting to be enrolled by the spring. And that's going to be, I'm going to go back and major in political science.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to take the bar in 2 years, but I want to do my master's in the arts.
Oh, great.
Or even get a second bachelor's in the arts, because, you gotta legitimize it across. Not that I haven't had to thus far, but I would like to, just for emphasis.
Well, good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.